The deep space was silent, no stars moved, no sound existed in the vacuum. Only the soft hum of engines broke the endless dark. A Galactic Council patrol ship named Vessel K-9 moved slowly through an unmarked region of space. This part of the galaxy was far from any major trade route. Few ships ever came. Here it was cold, forgotten, and quiet. Captain Doran V sat in his chair on the bridge. He was a thrill, a tall alien species with gray skin and calm yellow eyes. His race was known across the galaxy for being fair and careful. He did not like surprises, but tonight something felt wrong, sir, said Nyla, his young co-pilot, a thrill woman with sharp instincts. We are picking up an energy signature. It's coming from that asteroid field ahead. Doran leaned forward. Define the signature. Unknown. Nyla said, it's not natural. Something built this. The ship slowed ahead of them, hidden between broken rocks and debris was a structure. It was dark, metallic and old. No lights, no signals, no welcome beacon, just silence. That's not on any star map, Doran said quietly. No, sir, Nyla replied. It's not registered anywhere in Council records. Doran felt a chill run through him. Though the ship was warm, in his many years of service, he had seen abandoned stations, pirate bases, and secret laboratories. But something about this one felt different. It felt wrong. Take us closer, he ordered, slowly. The ship crept forward, engines barely humming. As they got closer, more details appeared. The structure was shaped like a giant metal spider with long arms stretching out into the asteroid field. Faint lights flickered along its surface, weak and dying. Life signs, Doran asked. Nyla checked her screen, her eyes narrowing. Yes, but sir, this can't be right. What is it? The life signs, she said slowly. They're small, very small, like children. Doran's hearts for thrill had two both skipped a beat. Children out here. Whose species? Nyla ran the scan again. Her hands were shaking slightly. The biological signature, it matches human DNA. Silence fell on the bridge. That's impossible, Doran said. There are no human colonies anywhere near this sector. Humans are new to the galaxy. They barely have ships that can travel this far. I know, sir, Nyla said, but the readings don't lie. There are at least 20, maybe 30 human children inside that station. Doran stood up slowly. His mind raced. Humans were the newest species to join the wider galactic community. They were seen as young, emotional, and unpredictable, but not dangerous. Most species in the Council did not take them seriously. Some even mocked them, calling them the loud, soft-skinned children of the galaxy. But if what Nyla said was true, something was very wrong. Here, prepare a landing team, Doran ordered. I want full scans before we dock. I don't want any surprises. The landing team consisted of 5 Council officers, led by Doran himself. They wore light armor and carried scanning devices, not weapons. The Council rarely expected violence on old, abandoned stations. As their shuttle approached the docking bay, more of the station came into view. Rust covered the metal walls. Broken lights blinked weakly. There were no ships docked outside, no signs of recent activity. Except for one thing, a single antenna near the top of the structure was still transmitting a signal, weak but active. Someone wanted this to be found, Doran muttered. The shuttle landed with a soft hiss. The airlock groaned open, releasing a puff of stale, cold air. Doran stepped out first, scanner in hand. The corridor ahead was dark, lit only by dim emergency lights along the floor. Stay close, Doran said to his team. They walked slowly through the corridors. The walls were covered in strange symbols, some kind of alien writing none of them recognized. Wires hung loose from the ceiling. The air smelled of rust and something else, something sour like fear. Then they heard it, a sound small, faint, like a child crying. Doran froze. His team stopped behind him. Did you hear that? Nyla whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Yes, Doran said. This way. They followed the sound down a narrow hallway, past broken doors and empty rooms until they reached a large chamber. Doran raised his scanner and stepped inside. What he saw made his heart stop. Rows and rows of cages, not animal cages, not storage crates, cages built for children, small metal enclosures, each one barely big enough for a child to sit or lie down. Thin blankets covered the floors. Dim lights flickered above each cage, casting pale shadows, and inside those cages were human children, dozens of them, some as young as 5 years old, some looked to be around 12 or 13. Their clothes were torn and dirty. Their eyes, when they looked up, showed exhaustion and fear. One little girl, no older than 6, pressed herself against the bars of her cage. Her hair was matted, her cheeks hollow from hunger. She stared at Doran with wide, frightened eyes. Doran's whole body went numb. By the stars, Nyla whispered behind him, her voice breaking. None of the officers moved for a long moment. They had seen many terrible things in their careers: pirate wars, plague zones, destroyed colonies. But nothing had prepared them for this. Doran stepped forward slowly, lowering his scanner. He knelt down in front of the little girl's cage, trying to look as gentle as possible. "Hello," he said softly. "My name is Doran. I'm here to help you." The girl didn't answer. She just stared, her small hands gripping the bars. "Can you tell me your name?" Doran asked. After a long pause, she whispered, "Emma." "Emma." Doran repeated gently. "Where are you from?" "Earth," she said. "They took us from Earth." Doran felt something twist inside his chest, an emotion he rarely felt. Anger, deep burning anger. "Who took you?" he asked. Emma's eyes darted to the far end of the room, toward a locked door. "The scientists," she whispered. "They said we were special. They said we were part of an experiment." Doran turned to his team. "Search the rest of the station, now." The officers spread out, moving quickly through the corridors. More chambers were found, more cages, more children. Some were sick, some were too weak to speak. A few had strange marks on their arms, signs of injections or tests. In one room they found medical files, hundreds of pages describing experiments on subspecies Homo sapiens juvenile. The files spoke about testing endurance, pain tolerance, and genetic resilience. Doran's hands trembled as he read through the reports. These were not simple experiments. These were cruel tests designed to see how much a human child's body could endure before breaking. "Sir," one officer called from another room, "we found something." Doran walked over and found a holographic recorder still active, recording silently. On the screen was a live feed, a small drone camera hidden in the corner, capturing everything happening in real time. Someone somewhere had been secretly monitoring this station and recording everything. Doran stared at the small blinking light on the drone. It was transmitting somewhere far away. "Where is this signal going?" he asked. Nyla checked the transmission log. Her face went pale. "Sir, this feed has been broadcasting for the past 6 hours straight to Earth." Command. Dorn's blood ran cold. Earth. Command had already seen everything. Back on the ship, Dorn called for an emergency meeting with the council. The children were being carefully moved to the medical bay, given food, water, and warm blankets. Emma sat quietly wrapped in a silver survival blanket, watching everything with tired eyes. As the medical team worked, one boy, maybe 10 years old, looked up at Nyla. "Are you going to send us home?" he asked. Nyla knelt beside him, forcing a soft smile, despite the storm of emotions inside her. "Yes," she said, "we're going to get you all home, I promise." The boy nodded slowly, then looked toward the small drone camera still blinking in the corner of the room. "They already know," he whispered. "Who knows?" Nyla asked. The boy's eyes were calm, too calm for a child who had just been rescued. "Earth," he said simply. "They've been watching us the whole time." A chill spread through the room. Doran, standing near the door, overheard this. He turned to look at the drone light, still blinking steadily, transmitting its signal across the vast emptiness of space straight toward a small, quiet planet called Earth. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Doran's communicator buzzed. It was an incoming transmission. "Council Central, urgent priority," he answered immediately. "This is Captain Doran Vex reporting from Sector 9. We've discovered a hidden facility containing we know." The voice on the other end interrupted. It sounded shaken. "Captain, Earth has already responded." Doran frowned. "Responded? How?" "They didn't send a message," the voice said. "They sent silence." "What do you mean?" "All Earth communication channels went dark 30 minutes ago. No diplomatic messages, no requests, no demands, nothing. Every single Earth vessel near Council space has gone offline." Doran's stomach tightened. In all his years serving the Council, he had grown used to the noisy, chaotic nature of human diplomacy. Humans always talked. They argued, they negotiated, they complained, but silence, that was new. That was different, and somehow it felt far more dangerous than anything they had said before. "Sir," Nyla said quietly from behind him, staring at her monitor, "you need to see this." Doran walked over. On the screen was a satellite feed showing Earth's main space fleet, normally docked and quiet. Every single ship's lights were now on. Engines were firing, and one by one they were leaving orbit. Doran stared at the screen, his heart's pounding. Something had shifted, something ancient and quiet within humanity had just been awakened, and as the little boy had said, Earth already knew. They had seen the cages, they had seen their children crying behind metal bars, and now they were coming. Doran looked back at Emma, still wrapped in her silver blanket, staring silently at the drone light blinking above her. She looked up at him and whispered words that would echo across galactic history for years to come. "Tell my mom," she said softly, "I'm still here." The transmission feed blinked once more, then cut to black. Somewhere far across the galaxy, message had already been received. Humanity had been notified, and the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Earth was known across the galaxy as a quiet planet, not weak, not small, just quiet. For the past 50 years since humans had joined the wider galactic community, most alien species had formed the same opinion. About them, humans were loud in conversation. Yes, they argued about small things. They laughed easily and cried easily. Their emotions were always on the surface, easy to read, easy to predict. Because of this, many species underestimated them. The Varun called them soft. The THRL called them young. Even friendly species like the Alaran saw humans as a new curious race, full of energy but not yet a serious power in galactic affairs. Humanity's fleet was small compared to older empires. Their weapons were considered basic. Their ships were fast, but not heavily armed. Most species agreed that humans were not a threat. But there was one thing the galaxy had never truly tested. They had never threatened a human child until now, at Earth Command, deep beneath the mountains of a secure military base. Alarms had gone silent, not because nothing was happening, but because every alarm that could ring had already rung. And now the base moved with cold, silent focus. General Alina Cross stood in the command center, her eyes locked on the large holographic display in front of her. The feed from Vessel Cade 9 played on repeat. The cages, the children, the small girl named Emma, whispering her final words before the feed cut off. "Tell my mom I'm still here." Helena's jaw tightened around her. Officers moved quickly, but no one spoke loudly. No one shouted orders. There was no panic, just quiet, controlled motion, like a machine slowly waking up after a long sleep. "Ma'am," said Major Reyes, a tall officer standing beside her, "all fleets report ready. Ships are online awaiting your command." Alina did not look away from the screen. Her eyes were fixed on Emma's face, frozen in the final frame of the video. "How many children were found?" she asked quietly. 32, ma'am. All confirmed human ages, ranging from 5 to 14. Alina's hands resting on the edge of the console curled into tight fists. "And they species responsible?" "The Voron Empire," Reyes answered. "Records show they've operated in that region for over a decade. This isn't their first hidden facility, ma'am. Intelligence suggests there may be others." Alina finally turned to face her officers. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held something colder than anger, something controlled, focused, and absolute. "Send the following message to every council member and every allied system," she said, word for word. She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Humanity does not negotiate for the lives of its children. We do not ask, we do not warn twice. What happens next is not diplomacy, it is retrieval." The room went silent. Reyes swallowed hard before responding. "Yes, ma'am." Word of the discovery spread quickly across Earth's military and political channels. But strangely, the public news channels remained calm, almost eerily quiet. No dramatic headlines, no emotional interviews, no outrage on television. Because Earth's government had made a decision. They would not warn the galaxy with words, they would show them with actions. At the United Earth Council chamber, world leaders gathered for an emergency session. Screens showed feeds from military bases worldwide, soldiers boarding ships, engineers running final checks, pilots preparing for launch. President Amara Whitfield stood at the podium, her face calm but her eyes sharp with quiet fury. "We have waited 50 years, she said, addressing the chamber, "proving to this galaxy that we are peaceful, that we are reasonable, that we come in cooperation, not conquest." She paused, letting her words sink into The room, but peace was never weakness. It was patience. The room was silent, every leader watching her closely. Today that patience has run out, she looked toward the large screen showing satellite images of Earth's fleet, ships, lighting up one by one across the planet's orbit. They took our children, she said, voice steady. They caged them, tested them, treated them like animals in a lab. Her hands gripped the podium tightly. We are not sending a message asking for their return. She turned to face the cameras, broadcasting the session to Council allies across the galaxy. We are simply telling the galaxy, stand back. Across the vast reaches of space, Council officials watched Earth's sudden silence with growing unease. At Council Central Station, Ambassador Veli's Corps, a senior diplomat of the Alaran species, stood before a wall of monitors, showing Earth's fleet movements. His antenna twitched nervously, a sign of stress among his kind. This is unusual, he murmured to his aide. Humans always respond with words, long messages, demands, threats, arguments. Yes, Ambassador, his aide replied, but this time they've sent nothing, no message, no official statement, just silence. Veles frowned, staring at the screen. Silence from humans is more dangerous than their words. Why do you say that, sir? Veles turned to his aide, his expression grave. Because it means they've stopped asking permission. Meanwhile, deep within Voran territory, the leadership of the Voran Empire remained confident, unaware of the storm gathering against them. High Commander Threx, a tall armored Voran general, sat in his private chamber, reviewing reports from the hidden research station. He had received word that Council forces had discovered the facility, but he was not concerned. Let them find it, he said calmly to his advisor. We've operated for years without consequence. The Council is too slow, too weak to act quickly. But, Commander, his advisor said nervously, the subjects taken were human children. Their species has grown more active lately in Council matters. Tha A waved a dismissive hand. Humans are young, emotional, loud. They'll complain to the Council, demand an investigation, maybe issue sanctions. By the time anything happens, we'll have relocated our operations. His advisor hesitated. Sir, our scouts report unusual activity near Earth's border systems. Ships are moving fast. Threx's confidence flickered slightly, but he quickly dismissed the thought. It's nothing, a show of force. Perhaps humans like to appear strong, even when they aren't. He turned back to his reports, unaware that somewhere far beyond his border, an entire species was quietly preparing for war, not for conquest, not for power, but for something far more personal, for their children. Back on Earth, preparations moved quickly and quietly. Unlike traditional military campaigns, there were no press conferences, no grand speeches, no declarations of war, only movement. Ships loaded with elite retrieval teams launched from bases across the globe. Fighter squadrons synchronized flight paths, communication satellites adjusted signals to maintain a direct, secure link between Earth and the approaching fleet. Inside one of the lead ships, the UES Vindicator, Captain Marcus Hale stood before his crew, addressing them with calm, steady words. You all saw the footage, he said. You all know why we're here. The crew remained silent, focused. This isn't about politics. It isn't about power. It's about getting those kids home safe, Marcus continued. Every decision we make from here on will be guided by one goal: bring them back. He looked around the room at his crews. Determined faces. We move fast, we move smart, and we do not stop until every last child is found. The crew responded with quiet nods. No cheering, no shouting, just calm, focused resolve. As Earth's fleet moved steadily toward Council space, news of their approach spread rapidly among neighboring star systems. Species who had never paid much attention to humanity's military capabilities suddenly found themselves watching closely at a small trading outpost near the border of Voron space. A group of alien merchants gathered around a viewscreen, watching live sensor reports of Earth's advancing fleet. There, moving in tight formation, one merchant said, a small insect-like being named ZRE. No wasted movement, no hesitation. I've never seen humans organized like this, another merchant added, watching nervously. Usually their ships move independently, chaotic, disorganized. Tree's antenna twitched. This isn't chaos, he said quietly. This is focus. The group fell silent, watching the fleet's steady approach on the screen. Meanwhile, aboard vessel Cade-9, Captain Doran Vex remained with the rescued children as they awaited transport back to Council territory. Emma, the young girl who had spoken those unforgettable words, sat quietly beside Nyla, still wrapped in her silver survival blanket. Do you think they'll come? Emma asked softly, looking up at Nyla. Nyla hesitated, unsure how to answer. She had never seen humanity's full military might in action. Few outside their species had. I don't know, she admitted honestly, but if what I've heard about your people is true. She paused, glancing toward the drone camera, still blinking quietly. The corner of the room, its signal steady and unbroken. Then yes, they're already on their way. Emma nodded. Slowly, her eyes calm despite everything she had endured. Good, she whispered. Because they don't like it when someone takes what's theirs. Nyla studied the young girl's face, surprised by the quiet confidence in her voice. It was strange, she thought, how such a small child could sound so certain, so unafraid. Doran, standing nearby, overheard this exchange. He looked toward the transmission, still broadcasting steadily toward Earth, then toward the vast emptiness of space. Beyond the ship's window, somewhere out there, an entire fleet was moving. Quiet, focused, unstoppable. And for the first time since joining the galaxy's community, Doran realized something important, something the rest of the galaxy was only now beginning to understand. Humanity's silence wasn't submission, it was preparation. As night fell over Earth Command, President Whitfield stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city, watching the stars above. Somewhere among those distant lights, her people were moving toward danger, toward an enemy who had underestimated them. Her communicator buzzed softly. She answered immediately. Ma'am, General Cross's voice came through, steady and calm. Fleet has crossed into Council space. ETA Devoran. Border 6 hours. Whitfield closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of the moment settle over her. Understood, she replied. Tell Captain Hale bring our children home. Yes, ma'am. Line went silent. Whitfield opened her eyes, staring up at the vast night sky filled with countless unseen stars. Somewhere among them, a fleet moved steadily forward, silent, determined, unstoppable. And across the galaxy, species who had once dismissed humanity as young, emotional, and weak were about to witnessed something they would never forget. The quiet giant had finally awakened, and it was coming for its children. The Council's central station orbited quietly above a neutral system, far from any single empire's territory. It was the meeting place for all major species in the galaxy, a massive ring-shaped structure built centuries ago to keep peace between rival civilizations. Today, that peace felt fragile. Inside the grand chamber, hundreds of representatives from different species sat in curved rows facing a central platform. Screens above displayed the footage from Vessel C9, the cages, the children, the small girl named Emma whispering her final words. The room was tense. Murmurs spread through the crowd as delegates whispered to each other dozens of different languages. At the center of the platform stood High Commander Threx Mole, representing the Voron Empire. He wore ceremonial armor, polished and gleaming, meant to project strength and authority. Beside him stood two Voron advisors, both looking noticeably nervous despite their leader. Calm expression. Ambassador Veli's Core, presiding over the session, raised a hand for silence. The murmurs died down slowly. High Commander Threx Veli said, his voice steady but firm. You have been summoned to explain the discovery made at Sector 9. Explain to this council why were human children found imprisoned in a Voron research facility. Threx straightened, his expression calm, almost bored. Ambassador, I understand the emotional reaction this footage has caused, but I assure you everything done was within the bounds of scientific research. Gasps and angry whispers spread through the chamber. Scientific research. Bellies repeated, his antenna twitching sharply. You are calling the imprisonment of children scientific research? Threx remained composed. The subjects were carefully selected. Human children, due to their unique biology, show remarkable resilience and adaptability. Our scientists were studying growth patterns, endurance limits, and genetic responses to controlled environments. Controlled environments, Veli said slowly, his voice tightening with anger. You mean cages? Secure containment units, Threxa corrected calmly, necessary for consistent data collection. The chamber erupted into loud protests. Delegates from dozens of species stood, shouting objections, banging fists against tables. Velis raised both hands, demanding order, but the noise continued for several long moments before finally settling. Threx did not flinch. He remained standing tall, unaffected by the outrage surrounding him. You must understand, he continued, addressing the chamber directly. Humanity is a new species to galactic society, emotional, unpredictable. Their reaction to this situation, understandable as it may be, does not change the scientific value of our research. A voice rose from the crowd, sharp and angry. It belonged to Ambassador Ryland Thorne, representing the Aran Alliance, a species known for their strong sense of justice. Do you hear yourself, Commander? Ryland said, standing abruptly. You speak of children as subjects, as data points, as if their suffering means nothing. Threxa turned calmly toward him. Ambassador Thorne, I understand your concern, but science requires sacrifice. Progress requires difficult decisions. Progress? Ryland's voice rose further, filled with disbelief. You call torturing children progress? There was no torture, Threxer replied. Simply only structured testing. The chamber fell into stunned silence at his Casual tone. From the side of the chamber, quietly, observing the proceedings, sat a small delegation representing Earth, unlike the Voran representatives. They wore no ceremonial armor, no elaborate decorations, simple formal attire, calm and composed. Ambassador Julian Reyes, Earth's senior diplomat to the Council, sat quietly, watching Threx's arrogant defense with a controlled, cold expression. Beside him sat Doran Vex, invited to testify as the officer who discovered the facility. Doran's expression remained neutral, but his eyes burned with quiet anger as he listened to Threx's calm justification. Veles turned toward the Earth delegation. Ambassador Reyes, would Earth like to respond? Julian stood slowly, adjusting his jacket, his expression calm but firm. Thank you, Ambassador Ellis, he began, his voice steady and clear. I will not waste time arguing morality with someone who clearly does not understand it. He turned toward Threx, his gaze sharp and unwavering. Instead, I will simply state facts. He gestured toward the large screen displaying the footage once more. The cages, the children. Emma's tearful whisper. These are children, Julian said, not test subjects, not data points. Children taken from their families, imprisoned, and subjected to experiments without consent. He turned back toward the chamber. Humanity did not come here today to argue definitions or debate scientific ethics. We came here to inform this council of what will happen next. The room grew quiet, sensing the shift in tone. Earth's fleet is already moving toward Voron territory. Julian continued calmly, not to negotiate, not to demand apologies, but to retrieve every single child taken, and to ensure this council understands clearly. Humanity does not tolerate harm against its own. Threx's calm expression flickered slightly, the first sign of genuine concern crossing his face. You would risk open conflict with the Voron Empire? He asked, his voice edged with disbelief. Over a scientific dispute? Julian's eyes narrowed. This isn't a scientific dispute, Commander. This is a rescue. Outside the Grand Chamber, news of the confrontation spread rapidly across the council station. Delegates from other species gathered in small groups, discussing the unfolding crisis with growing concern. Ambassador Veles Corps stood near a viewport staring out at the vast emptiness of space, his aide standing quietly beside him. This is unprecedented, Ellis murmured. Humanity has never acted so decisively before. Do you believe they will actually attack the Voron Empire, sir? His aide asked nervously. Veles's antenna twitched thoughtfully. I believe, he said slowly, that humanity does not see this as an attack. They see it as recovery, and that distinction terrifies me more than open war would. Meanwhile, aboard the Voron flagship stationed near their border, Commander Threx Mole met privately with his senior officers, his earlier confidence now replaced by visible unease. Sir, one officer said cautiously, reports confirm Earth's fleet has crossed into neutral space. They are moving directly toward our research outposts. Threx's jaw tightened. How many ships? 12 capital ships, Commander, along with support vessels and fighter squadrons. Threxa frowned. 12 ships, that's barely enough to threaten a single outpost, let alone our empire, sir. Another officer interjected nervously. Our scouts report the fleet's formation is unusual. Precise, efficient, nothing like previous human military patterns we've observed. Threx waved a dismissive hand, though his confidence seemed shakier than before. Humans posture they wish to appear strong before negotiations begin. It's a tactic, nothing more. His advisor hesitated before speaking again. Commander, intelligence suggests Earth has ceased all diplomatic communications entirely. No demands, no warnings, no negotiations requested. Threx's frown deepened. No demands at all. None, sir. The chamber fell silent as Threxa considered this troubling detail. In all his years dealing with emotional, talkative human diplomats, silence had never been part of their pattern. Increase security at all research facilities immediately, Threxa ordered. Finally, his voice edged with newfound caution, and prepare defensive measures at Outpost Delta 7. Delta 7, sir, his advisor asked, confused. Why there specifically? Threx's expression darkened. Because that facility holds the remaining human subjects. Back within the Grand Chamber, tensions remained high as Ambassador Veles attempted to restore order among the delegates. This council cannot condone open conflict between member species, Belly said firmly, addressing both Julian and Threxa. We must find a diplomatic resolution before further escalation occurs. Julian remained calm, his expression unmoved. Ambassador, Earth is not seeking council approval for this action. We are simply informing you out of respect for this institution of what will happen. Threxa stepped forward, his voice regaining some of its earlier confidence. The council must intervene. Earth cannot be permitted to threaten sovereign territory without consequence. Veles hesitated, clearly caught between diplomatic obligation and genuine concern. Commander, Threx, perhaps returning the children peacefully would resolve this matter swiftly, avoiding further conflict. Threx's eyes narrowed slightly, calculating his next words carefully. The subjects remain vital to ongoing research. Releasing them prematurely would compromise months of valuable data. Julian's expression hardened at this response. Then Earth's fleet will retrieve them directly, he said calmly. With or without this council's approval. The chamber fell into tense silence, delegates exchanging worried glances as the reality of the situation settled over them. Later that day, in a quieter section of the council station, Doran Vex found himself walking alongside Ambassador Julian Reyes, both men reflecting silently on the tense proceedings. You didn't raise your voice once, Doran said quietly, breaking the silence. Even when Threxa spoke so casually about the children. Julian's expression remained calm, though his eyes carried deep, quiet anger. Shouting wouldn't help those children, he replied simply. Actions will. Doran nodded slowly, understanding the wisdom in his words. The Voron commander seemed unprepared for Earth's response. He observed. He expected diplomacy, negotiation, perhaps sanctions. That's the mistake most species make, Julian said, his voice steady. They think our patience means weakness. They forget patience is simply controlled strength, waiting for the right moment. Doran considered this thoughtfully. And now that moment has arrived. Julian's gaze drifted toward the viewport, staring silently at the distant stars beyond. Now, he said quietly, the moment has passed. Now it's simply time to finish what's necessary. Meanwhile, deep within Voron territory, Outpost Delta 7 prepared nervously for potential conflict. soldiers rushed through metal corridors, reinforcing defenses, while scientists hurriedly moved sensitive research data to secure storage in one dimly lit chamber. Remaining human children watched quietly as Voron guards moved anxiously around them, sensing the sudden tension in the air. A young boy named Caleb, barely 10 years old, watched the guards carefully. From behind the bars of his cage, his eyes were calm despite the surrounding chaos, a strange confidence evident in his expression. "They're scared," he whispered quietly to another child beside him. "Why?" the smaller girl asked, confused. Caleb's eyes remained fixed on the nervous guards. "Because they know we're not alone anymore." The girl looked up at him, uncertain. "How do you know?" Caleb's gaze shifted toward a small vent near the ceiling. Faint sounds of distant engines echoing softly through the metal corridors above. "Because I can hear them coming," he whispered. Outpost Delta 7 sat quietly on the edge of Voron territory, a heavily fortified research station built into the side of a rocky moon. From orbit it looked small and insignificant, just another mining outpost among thousands scattered across Voron space, but inside it held secrets far darker than mining operations. Commander Threx arrived at Delta 7, personally, unwilling to trust this crisis to subordinates alone. He walked briskly through the station's corridors, flanked by armed guards, his expression tense despite his earlier confidence. "Before the council, status report," he demanded, entering the command center. An officer straightened immediately. "Sir, Earth's fleet remained 6 hours out, maintaining steady approach. No change in formation or speed." Threxa frowned, studying the tactical display, showing Earth's 12 ships moving steadily through neutral space. "Defensive measure, shields reinforced, sir. Weapon systems online. We've also requested reinforcements from nearby Voron garrisons." "Good," Threx said, though his voice lacked conviction. "How many additional ships can arrive before Earth's fleet reaches us?" The officer hesitated. "3 more capital ships, sir. ETA 4 hours. Threx's jaw tightened. 4 hours would give them a slight advantage. 15 ships against Earth's 12. Under normal circumstances, this would be more than sufficient, but these were not normal circumstances. "Sir," another officer interrupted nervously. "Long-range sensors just detected something unusual." Threxa turned sharply. "What is it?" "A single vessel, sir, separated from the main human fleet. It's moving ahead of the others alone." Threx's brow furrowed in confusion. "Alone? Why would they send a single ship ahead of their main fleet?" The officer shook his head, equally puzzled. "Unknown, sir. The vessel isn't broadcasting any identification codes. It's simply approaching directly." Threx studied the tactical display carefully, watching the single blip representing the mysterious ship moving steadily closer to Delta 7. "Show me a visual," he ordered. The main screen flickered, displaying a live feed captured by long-range sensors. The ship was sleek dark gray, unlike any human vessel previously cataloged by Voron intelligence. It moved silently through space, alone, unafraid, directly toward their heavily fortified outpost. "That's not a warship," Threxa murmured, studying its design carefully. "Too small, too streamlined." "Then what is it, Commander?" his advisor asked nervously. Threx's eyes narrowed as realization slowly dawned upon him. "It's a messenger," he said quietly. Aboard the mysterious vessel, Captain Marcus Hale sat calmly in his command chair watching Delta 7 grow steadily. Larger on his viewscreen, beside him his co-pilot Lieutenant Sarah Kim monitored sensor readings carefully. "Commander, we're entering weapons range." Of Delta 7, Sarah said calmly. "Understood," Marcus replied, his voice steady. "Maintain current course. Do not power weapons." Sarah glanced at him. Slightly puzzled. "Sir, shouldn't we prepare defensive measures? Their outpost has significant firepower." Marcus' expression remained calm, almost serene. "We're not here to fight." "Lieutenant, not yet." "Then why are we alone, sir, separated from the main fleet?" Marcus turned toward her, his gaze steady and confident. "Because sometimes the most powerful message isn't sent by an entire fleet, it's sent by a single voice, calm and clear, standing alone before an enemy who expects only aggression." Sarah considered this thoughtfully, nodding slowly and understanding. "Prepare a direct transmission," Marcus ordered. "Broadcast openly, no encryption. I want every ship, every station, every channel within range to hear this clearly." "Yes, sir," Sarah replied quickly, preparing the broadcast. Marcus straightened in his chair, taking a slow breath before speaking clearly into the open channel. Inside Delta 7's command center, alarms suddenly blared as the incoming transmission was detected. "Sir, incoming broadcast from the human vessel," an officer announced urgently. "Open channel unencrypted." Threx's eyes narrowed. "Play it." The screen flickered, displaying Marcus Hale's calm, steady face. His voice carried clearly through the command center, firm and unwavering. "This message is for Commander Threxall and all Voran forces stationed at Outpost Delta 7. Threx straightened, listening intently. "You currently hold human children in captivity," Marcus continued calmly. "Return them immediately unharmed to this vessel. You have 1 hour." The command center fell silent, officers exchanging nervous glances. 1 hour, Threxer repeated aloud, disbelief evident in his voice. "A single ship alone against our entire outpost, giving us an ultimatum." Marcus' voice continued steadily through the transmission, as if anticipating this exact reaction. "I understand this may seem unusual to you," Marcus said calmly. "A single ship seemingly alone, demanding compliance from an entire fortified outpost. Perhaps you believe this is bluff, arrogance, or foolishness." Threx's officers glanced nervously at their commander, awaiting his reaction. "Let me be clear," Marcus continued, his tone unwavering. "This is not a negotiation. This is a warning. 1 hour from now, if those children are not released unharmed, humanity will act. Not with words, but with actions you will not soon forget." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving silence hanging heavily within the command center. For a long moment nobody spoke. Then, slowly clears throat, Threxa began to laugh. "An empty threat," Threxa said, shaking his head in disbelief. "1 ship alone threatening our entire garrison. Humans truly are as foolish as I've always believed." His officers exchanged uncertain glances, unsure whether to share his confidence. "Sir," his advisor said cautiously, "perhaps we should reconsider our position. Human diplomatic patterns have already shown unusual behavior." "Enough," Threx snapped, cutting him off sharply. "We have 15 warships arriving shortly. Their single vessel poses no genuine threat. This is nothing more than psychological posturing meant to intimidate us into premature surrender." He turned back toward the viewscreen, watching the small human ship remain motionless, patiently waiting at the edge of weapons range. Ignore their ultimatum, Threxa ordered firmly. Reinforce our defenses and prepare to repel any further human vessels that dare approach. Yes, Commander, his officers replied, though hesitation remained evident in their voices. Aboard the human vessel, Marcus watched calmly as Delta-7 remained unresponsive, exactly as he had anticipated. No response, sir, Sarah reported. Quietly, Marcus nodded slowly. Unsurprised, as expected, sir. If they don't comply, Sarah said. Carefully, are we truly prepared to act alone against their entire outpost? Marcus' expression remained calm. Confident, we're not alone, Lieutenant. Sarah frowned, confused. Sir, sensors show no other vessels nearby. Not yet, Marcus interrupted, gently gesturing toward the ships. Chronometer steadily counting down the remaining time, but they will be back. Within Delta-7, tension steadily grew among the Voran crew as the countdown continued. Guards nervously patrolled corridors, glancing frequently toward viewports, half expecting sudden attack. Despite Threx's confident dismissal, in the detention chamber, young Caleb watched quietly as nervous guards paced anxiously outside his cage. They're getting more scared, he whispered softly to the girl beside him. How long? Until the hour ends, she asked quietly. Caleb glanced toward a small clock mounted on the chamber wall, its hands steadily marking the passing minutes. 10 minutes, he whispered. The girl's eyes widened nervously. What happens then? Caleb's gaze drifted toward the ceiling, listening intently to faint sounds echoing softly through distant corridors, sounds only he seemed to notice. Then he whispered calmly, everyone here finds out exactly what humans are capable of. Exactly 1 hour after Marcus' initial transmission, Delta-7 sensors suddenly detected multiple incoming signals. Alarms blared loudly throughout the station as officers rushed anxiously toward tactical displays. Commander, an officer shouted urgently, multiple vessels detected, approaching rapidly. From multiple directions, Threx rushed toward the display, eyes widening in shock. Dozens of small, sleek shapes appeared suddenly on sensors surrounding Delta-7 from every angle. Impossible, Threx murmured, staring disbelief. Where did they come from? Our sensors detected nothing, sir. These vessels are unlike anything in our database, another officer reported nervously. Stealth technology, perhaps. Advanced cloaking systems. Threx's confidence shattered instantly, replaced by genuine fear. How many ships, sir? Possibly more. Threxa stared blankly at the screen, realizing too late the great error he had made. They weren't posturing, he whispered, horror dawning in his voice. They were waiting. Aboard Marcus' vessel, Sarah watched calmly as dozens of previously hidden human ships decloaked suddenly around Delta-7, their combined firepower vastly overwhelming the Voron defenses. Commander, Sarah said quietly, glancing toward Marcus, shall we proceed? Marcus' gaze remained steady, calm, and unwavering as he watched Delta-7's shocked reaction unfold clearly on their sensors. They had their chance, he said quietly. Now we retrieve our children. He turned toward his crew, voice steady and clear. All ships converge on Delta-7. Retrieval teams prepare immediate boarding. Actions, yes, sir, came the immediate unified response from dozens of human Vessels surrounding the outpost, Marcus. Watch calmly as Delta 7's defenses scramble desperately, clearly overwhelmed and unprepared for the sudden coordinated human assault. Their arrogance blinded them, Marcus murmured quietly to himself, watching the outpost's chaotic response unfold. Now, it's time they learn the true cost of underestimating us. Inside Delta 7's detention chamber, young Caleb smiled softly, hearing distant explosions echoing faintly through the station's corridors. "They're here," he whispered excitedly to the girl beside him. She looked up at him, eyes wide with hope and fear mixed together. "Are we going home?" she asked softly. Caleb nodded confidently, watching nervously as guards outside their cage rushed frantically toward defensive positions, clearly terrified by the sudden human assault. "Yes," he whispered gently, reassuring her calmly, "we're going home." Outside the chamber, alarms blared loudly, explosions echoing ever closer as humanity's rescue operation began in full force. The hour had ended, and now humanity's true response had finally begun. Explosions rippled across the outer hall of Delta 7. Bright flashes lit up the dark space around the outpost, each one followed by a dull shock wave that rattled through the station's metal bones. Inside the command center, Threxel gripped the edge of his console, watching in disbelief as his tactical display filled with red warning markers. 40 human ships, then 50, then more, still decloaking from positions his sensors had never detected. "Shields at 60%, an officer shouted over the blaring alarms. "Weapons batteries 3 and 5 are offline. Return fire," Threxel bellowed. "All batteries target the nearest vessels." The outpost's defense cannons roared to life, streaking bolts of energy into the darkness, but the human ships moved with a speed and precision that seemed almost impossible. They twisted, dove, and rolled through the incoming fire, weaving between shots with practiced ease. "They're not even trying to destroy us," an officer said, watching the pattern of attacks with growing confusion. "They're targeting our weapon system specifically, nothing else." Threx's eyes narrowed as he studied the readouts. The officer was right. Every strike hit a cannon, a shield generator, a communication array, never the station's living quarters, never the reactor core, never anything that would kill indiscriminately. "They're being careful," Threx murmured, a chill running through him. "They don't want to destroy the station, they want to take it." Aboard the lead human vessel, Captain Marcus Hale watched the battle unfold with calm precision. Around him, his bridge crew worked in perfect coordination, each call and response crisp and efficient. "Weapons platforms Alpha and Bravo are down," Sarah reported. "Shield generators offline on the northern hull." "Good," Marcus said. "Send in the boarding teams." Small shuttlecraft, dark and swift, detached from the larger warships and streaked toward Delta 7's hull. They moved in tight formation, guided by pilots who had trained for years for exactly this kind of operation: precise, careful, controlled violence with a singular purpose. Captain Sarah said, glancing at another screen. "Foreign reinforcements are approaching. 3 capital ships, ETA 12 minutes." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we have 12 minutes to finish this." He turned to the ship's intercom, his voice steady and clear as it broadcast to every vessel in the fleet. "All units, this is Hale. reinforcements are. Inbound, we move fast, we move clean, and we bring every child home before they arrive. No hesitation, no mistakes. A chorus of confirmations echoed back through the comm channel, calm and disciplined, without a trace of fear. The boarding shuttle struck Delta 7's hull with practiced precision, magnetic clamps locking into place along weakened sections of the station's exterior. Small charges blew open airlocks, and armored human soldiers poured through the openings in tight, controlled formations. Inside the station's corridors, Varun guards scrambled to respond, but the invaders moved too quickly, too efficiently. Soldiers cleared rooms with practiced hand signals, moving from chamber to chamber with a calm urgency that left little room for resistance. Sergeant Ilias Ruiz led one such team down a narrow corridor, his weapon raised, eyes scanning every doorway they passed. Contact left, one of his soldiers called out. A group of Voron guards rounded the corner, weapons raised, but before they could fire, Ruiz's team responded with swift, controlled shots, disabling rather than killing, dropping the guards before they could pull their triggers. Move, move, Ruiz shouted. Pressing forward, we're looking for detention chambers, check every level. His team continued deeper into the station, following the layout data gathered from earlier reconnaissance. Every step brought them closer to the heart of Delta 7 and closer to the children still trapped inside. In the detention chamber, chaos had erupted. Voron guards rushed frantically between the rows of cages, unsure whether to defend their position or flee entirely. Explosions echoed through the walls, growing louder with each passing minute. Caleb watched calmly from behind the bars of his cage, his young face showing none of the fear reflected on the guards around him. They sound close, he whispered to the girl beside him, whose name he had learned was Mia. What if the guards heard us before they arrive? Mia asked nervously, her small hands trembling against the cold metal bars. Caleb considered this for a moment, watching the guards' panicked movements carefully. They're too scared to think about us right now, he said softly. They're only thinking about themselves. As if to confirm his words, one of the guards, a younger Voron soldier, suddenly turned toward the detention chamber's main door, calling out nervously to his commanding officer. Sir, should we move the subjects? Use them as there's no time, the officer barked, cutting him off sharply. Fall back to the secondary defense line. Leave the subjects. The guards quickly retreated, abandoning their posts entirely, leaving the detention chamber unguarded as the sounds of battle grew louder just beyond the walls. Moments later, the chamber's main door blew inward with a controlled explosion, smoke billowing through the opening. Armored figures moved swiftly through the haze, weapons raised, eyes scanning quickly for any remaining threats. Clear, one soldier called out, lowering his weapon as he took in the sight before him. Dozens of cages, each holding a frightened child. Sergeant Ruiz stepped forward slowly, his expression softening as he surveyed the room. He had seen combat before, had faced dangerous enemies across a dozen different battlefields, but nothing had prepared him for this. Get the medics in here now, he said quietly into his comm unit, his voice tight with controlled emotion. He approached the nearest cage slowly, kneeling down to meet the eyes of a small girl staring back at him with a mixture of fear and cautious hope. "Hey there," he said gently, removing his helmet so she could see his face. "Clearly, my name's Elias. I'm here to take you home." The girl's lip trembled, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. After what had clearly been days, perhaps weeks of holding them back. "Really?" she whispered. Ruiz nodded, carefully working at the cage's locking mechanism. "Really?" he said softly. "You're safe now." Throughout the chamber, similar scenes played out as soldiers worked quickly to free each child, offering gentle words of comfort despite the ongoing chaos surrounding them. Medics rushed in moments later, carrying blankets, water, and medical supplies, tending carefully to each child's needs. Caleb watched as a soldier approached his cage, kneeling down with the same gentle care he had witnessed with the other children. "You must be Caleb," the soldier said, glancing at a small data pad. "We heard about you from the council officers who found the first group." Caleb nodded, silently watching as the soldier worked at his cage's lock. "You've been taking care of the others, haven't you?" the soldier asked, glancing toward Mia and several other younger children nearby. "Someone had to," Caleb said quietly, his voice carrying a maturity far beyond his years. The soldier smiled softly, finally opening the cage. "Well, you don't have to anymore. We've got you now." As the children were gathered and carefully led toward the waiting shuttles, Ruiz's team continued their sweep of the facility, securing remaining areas and searching for any additional captives who might still be hidden within the station. Meanwhile, in the command center, Threxima watched helplessly as his tactical display showed human soldiers steadily overwhelming his remaining defenses. Reports flooded in from every level of the station, detention chambers cleared, defensive positions abandoned, guards captured or retreating in confusion. "Sir, the children have been recovered," an officer reported grimly. "Human forces are now moving toward the command center." Thrixo's hands clenched tightly at his sides. Everything he had built, every operation he had overseen for the past decade was collapsing within a matter of minutes. "Prepare emergency evacuation," he ordered, quietly, his voice lacking its earlier confidence. "Destroy all remaining research data. I won't let them." The command sense door suddenly blew open, cutting him off mid-sentence. Smoke poured through the opening as armored human soldiers stormed inside, weapons raised, quickly securing the room. "Hands where we can see them," Ruiz shouted, his team spreading quickly throughout the chamber. Threx's remaining officers raised their hands slowly, surrendering without resistance, clearly recognizing the futility of continued defiance. Threxa himself remained standing, staring defiantly at the approaching soldiers, though his earlier arrogance had clearly faded into something closer to fear. "You made a grave mistake," Threx said, attempting to regain some measure of authority in his voice. "Attacking a sovereign Voron outpost would have severe consequences." "Save it," Ruiz interrupted coldly, stepping forward to secure the Voron commander personally. "You'll have plenty of time to explain yourself to the council." As Threx was led away in restraints, he glanced one final time at the tactical display, watching helplessly as the last remnants of his once confident defense crumbled entirely. Outside the station, Marcus watched calmly as reports flooded in from each boarding team, confirming the successful recovery of every child held within. Delta 7, Captain Sarah reported relief evident in her voice. all children. Accounted for, 32 in total matching. Council records exactly, Marcus allowed. Himself a small, quiet breath of relief. Casualties. None on our side, sir, minimal Voron. Casualties. Mostly non-lethal. Engagements as ordered, Marcus nodded. Satisfaction evident in his calm expression. Good, prepare all vessels for immediate withdrawal. I want us gone before their reinforcements arrive. Yes, sir, Sarah replied quickly, relaying the orders throughout the fleet as human ships began their coordinated withdrawal. The 3 Voron capital ships finally arrived, only to find Delta 7's defenses shattered and their commanding officer already captured. Voron reinforcements watched in stunned silence as the human fleet calmly retreated, their mission complete, their objective achieved without significant losses. Aboard one of the retreating shuttles, Caleb sat quietly wrapped in a warm blanket, watching Mia and the other rescued children slowly begin to relax. For the first time in what felt like ages, a young soldier sat nearby, offering him a small ration bar and a warm smile. You did good back there, the soldier said quietly, taking care of the others like that. Caleb accepted the ration bar gratefully, glancing toward the shuttle's small viewport, watching Delta 7 shrink steadily into the distance behind them. I just didn't want them to be scared, he said softly. The soldier nodded understandingly. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. You're all safe now, Caleb smiled softly, finally allowing himself to relax against the shuttle seat, exhaustion finally catching up to him after days of quiet resilience. As the shuttle continued its journey back toward the main fleet, word of Delta 7's swift and decisive liberation spread rapidly across neighboring systems. Species who had previously underestimated humanity's resolve now watched with newfound caution, realizing clearly the true nature of the species they had once dismissed as young, emotional, and weak. Humanity had proven decisively and unmistakably exactly what happened when someone dared threaten its children, and the galaxy, watching closely, would never forget the lesson learned that day. 3 days after the liberation of Delta 7, the human fleet flagship, the UES Vindicator, entered orbit above Earth. Word of the successful rescue had already spread throughout the planet, though details remained limited to official channels for now. The world watched quietly, waiting. Inside the ship's medical bay, Caleb sat on the edge of a small cot, watching nurses move gently between beds filled with the rescued children. Mia slept peacefully nearby, finally, free of the fear that had haunted her for weeks. Around them, doctors checked vital signs, treated minor injuries, and offered warm meals to children who had, in some cases, forgotten what real food tasted like. Captain Marcus Hale walked slowly through the bay, stopping occasionally to speak with the medical staff, checking on the children's progress personally. His expression, usually calm and controlled, softened noticeably as he watched the young survivors slowly begin to heal. How are they doing? He asked quietly, approaching the lead physician, Dr. Amara Solis. Better than expected, Dr. Solis replied, glancing over her notes. Malnourished, some minor injuries from the experiments, and understandably traumatized, but physically they'll recover. Marcus nodded slowly and emotionally. Dr. Solis hesitated before answering. That will take longer, she admitted, Some of them barely speak, others won't. Stop watching the doors like they're still expecting something bad to happen. Marcus' jaw tightened slightly. They've earned the right to feel safe again. They have, Dr. Sawless agreed softly. It's just going to take time, Caleb. Watched this exchange quietly from his cot, listening carefully despite the adults' hushed tones. When Marcus finally approached him, Caleb sat up a little straighter, meeting the captain's eyes directly. You're the one who gave the order, Caleb said simply. It wasn't a question. Marcus knelt down beside the cot, meeting the boy's gaze evenly. I am, he said. Captain Marcus Hale. Caleb, the boy replied, offering a small tired smile. Thank you for coming. Marcus studied the boy for a long moment, nodding, the quiet strength in his expression, so unusual for someone his age. The other soldiers told me you helped take care of the younger kids in there, he said. That took real courage. Caleb shrugged slightly, glancing toward Mia's sleeping form nearby. Somebody had to, he said again, echoing what he'd told the soldier earlier. They were scared. I just tried to help them not feel so alone. Marcus nodded slowly. Something like quiet pride reflected in his expression. Well, because of you, they made it through. That matters more than you know. Caleb was quiet for a moment before speaking again. Will they be okay? The little ones. They will, Marcus said firmly. It'll take time, but they will. Meanwhile, back on Earth, families who had lost children months or even years earlier gathered anxiously outside a secure military facility, awaiting official word of the rescue. News crews kept carefully at a distance. Broadcast quiet, respectful coverage of the emotional scene unfolding. Among the gathered family stood Sandra Miller, Emma's mother, her hands trembling as she waited for news of her daughter. Same young girl whose quiet whisper aboard vessel K-9 had first alerted the galaxy to the horror occurring in Sector 9. They said the ship would be here soon. Sandra whispered to her husband, David, standing tensely beside her. They'll bring her home, David said softly, though his own voice betrayed his nervous anticipation. They promised. As the minutes stretched into hours, a transport shuttle finally descended from orbit, landing gently at the facility's designated area. Slowly the shuttle's doors opened and children began stepping out cautiously, blinking in the bright daylight after weeks spent in the dim confines of Delta 7. Sandra's breath caught in her throat as she spotted Emma among the group, thinner and paler than she remembered, but unmistakably her daughter. Emma, Sandra cried out, rushing forward despite the officials' careful crowd control efforts. Emma's eyes widened as she spotted her mother running toward her. For a brief moment, she froze, uncertain, as if unable to believe what she was seeing. Then tears streaming down her face, she ran forward, closing the distance quickly. Mom, Emma cried, collapsing into her mother's arms. Sandra held her daughter tightly, sobbing quietly into her hair. I've got you, she whispered repeatedly. I've got you now. David joined them moments later, wrapping his arms around both of them, tears streaming freely down his own face as well. Around them, similar reunions played out across the facility grounds. Parents embracing children they had feared they might never see again, tears and quiet cries of relief echoing softly through the crowd. Not far away, Caleb stepped off the shuttle slowly, glancing around at the unfamiliar surroundings. Unlike many of the other children, no Immediate family awaited him. His parents had died in an accident years earlier, and he had been living with distant relatives before his abduction. A kind-faced woman in a council uniform approached him gently. "Caleb," she asked softly, "my name is Officer Rhea. I'll be helping you get settled while we contact your family." Caleb nodded, quietly watching the emotional reunions unfolding around him with a strain mixture of happiness for the others and quiet loneliness for himself. Mia, noticing his hesitation, walked over slowly, her own parents waiting nearby. "Caleb," she said softly, "will you be okay?" Caleb offered a reassuring smile, despite his own uncertainty. "I'll be fine," he said gently. "Go be with your family." Mia hesitated, glancing back toward her parents, then back at Caleb. "Promise you'll be okay." Caleb nodded, forcing his expression to remain steady. "Promise." Reassured, Mia finally turned and ran toward her waiting parents, leaving Caleb alone with Officer Rhea, watching quietly as families reunited joyfully around him. Officer Rhea knelt down gently beside him. "You did something incredible back there, Caleb," she said softly. "Other children speak very highly of you." Caleb shrugged again, his earlier bravado fading slightly, revealing the exhaustion and loneliness beneath. "I just didn't want them to be scared," he repeated quietly. Rhea smiled warmly. "Well, you're not alone anymore either," she said gently. "We'll find you a good home, I promise." Caleb nodded slowly, allowing himself finally a small moment of vulnerability as tears quietly filled his eyes. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Vindicator, Marcus received an urgent transmission from Earth Command. He excused himself from the medical bay, moving quickly toward the ship's communication center. "Captain Hale," General Elena Cross's voice came through clearly. "Congratulations on a successful mission." "Thank you, General," Marcus replied. "All children have been safely returned home." "Excellent work," Cross said, "but there's something else you need to know." Marcus straightened, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "Go ahead, General." During the interrogation of Commander Threxel, Cross continued, "Council intelligence uncovered information suggesting Delta 7 wasn't the only facility involved in these experiments." Marcus' expression hardened. "There are more, at least 2 additional facilities," Cross confirmed grimly, "possibly more scattered throughout Voran territory." Marcus closed his eyes briefly, absorbing this troubling news. "Do we have their locations?" "Council forces are working to confirm exact coordinates now," Cross replied, "but Captain, I need you to prepare your fleet for further operations. This isn't over yet." Marcus nodded firmly, his earlier relief replaced by renewed determination. "Understood, General." "We'll be ready." Back within the Council Central Station, Ambassador Julian Reyes met privately with Ambassador Veles Core, discussing the troubling revelations uncovered during Threx's interrogation. "This goes far deeper than we initially believed," Veles said grimly, reviewing intelligence reports carefully. "The Voron Empire's experiments were far more extensive than a single facility." Julian's expression remained calm, though his eyes reflected quiet determination. "Then Earth's response will be equally thorough," he said firmly. Veles glanced up, concern evident in his expression. "Ambassador Reyes, I understand humanity's anger, and rightly so, but further military action against sovereign Voron territory risks igniting A wider galactic conflict. Julian met his gaze evenly. Ambassador Ellis, with respect humanity, did not start this conflict, the Voron Empire did, the moment they decided our children were acceptable subjects for their experiments. Veles considered this silently, clearly. Troubled by the moral complexity of the situation, what does Earth intend to do? He finally asked quietly. Julian's expression remained steady, resolute. Finish what we started, he said. Simply, every child taken will be found and brought home safely, no exceptions. That evening, aboard the Vindicator, Marcus stood quietly on the observation deck, staring out at the distant stars, reflecting on the difficult road still ahead. Behind him, Sarah approached, quietly, standing silently beside him. For a moment before speaking, "Sir," she said softly, "the crew's ready for whatever comes next." Marcus nodded slowly, his gaze still fixed on the distant stars. "I know they are," he said quietly. "It's just I keep thinking about how many more children might still be out there." Scared, alone, Sarah remained silent. For a moment, considering his words. "Carefully, we'll find them," she said. Finally, her voice steady and confident. "All of them." Marcus turned to face her, a small, determined smile forming on his lips. "Yes," he agreed quietly. "We will." Behind them, the ship's engines hummed softly, preparing quietly for the next stage of their mission, a mission that would take them deeper into unknown territory, further into danger, but closer to finally bringing every lost child safely home. As the Vindicator prepared to depart once more, word of humanity's decisive rescue continued, spreading rapidly throughout the galaxy, forever changing how other species viewed the quiet, patient world called Earth. No longer would humanity be dismissed as young, emotional, or weak. Now they were remembered as something far more significant, a species who would move mountains, cross galaxies, and challenge empires without hesitation, for the sake of even a single child's safety. And the galaxy, watching closely, understood clearly that this was only the beginning. 2 weeks passed since the liberation of Delta 7, and the galaxy had not stopped talking about it. News of humanity's swift, precise rescue operation spread across every major system, carried by traders, diplomats, and travelers who had once viewed Earth as little more than a curious newcomer to galactic affairs. Now that perception had changed entirely. At Council Central Station, delegates from dozens of species gathered once again in the Grand Chamber, though the mood this time was markedly different. Where once there had been dismissive murmurs about humanity's inexperience, now there was careful, respectful silence whenever Earth's representatives entered the room. Ambassador Julian Ray stood at the central platform, addressing the full assembly. Beside him stood General Elena Cross, having traveled personally from Earth to deliver an important update. 2 additional facilities have been located and liberated, Julian announced calmly. A total of 87 human children have now been recovered and returned safely to their families. Murmurs spread through the chamber, this time not of shock but of quiet respect. Operations were conducted with minimal casualties. Elena added, her voice steady and professional. Voron personnel involved directly in the experiments have been detained and will face judgment before this council per established galactic law. Ambassador Veles Corps, presiding once again over the session, nodded slowly. The council commends Earth's restraint and precision throughout these difficult operations. He said despite significant provocation, humanity has acted within the bounds of galactic law, targeting only those directly responsible from across the chamber. A representative of the Voron Empire no longer threats Maul, who remained in council custody awaiting trial, but a newly appointed diplomat named Van Arkesh rose slowly to speak. The Voron Empire formally apologizes for the actions of rogue elements within our scientific community, Vanter said, his voice careful and measured. These operations were not sanctioned by our central government and will be addressed accordingly. Julian studied the Voron diplomat for a long moment before responding. Earth accepts this apology, he said. Finally, on the condition that full cooperation is provided in locating any remaining facilities and that those responsible face appropriate justice. Benter nodded quickly, agreed. Ambassador, full cooperation will be provided. The chamber fell into thoughtful silence, delegates processing the significance of what had just occurred. A species once considered young and emotional had, in the span of mere weeks, forced one of the galaxy's more powerful empires into a position of genuine humility. Aboard the UES Vindicator, now resting in orbit above Earth after its long campaign, Captain Marcus Hale reviewed final reports with Sarah Kim in the ship's command center. Final count, Sarah said, reading from her data pad. 87 children recovered across 3 facilities, 12 Voron personnel detained for council trial, 0 human casualties throughout the entire operation. Marcus nodded slowly, allowing himself a rare moment of quiet satisfaction. That's more than I could have hoped. For the council's already calling it one of the most efficient rescue operations in galactic history, Sarah added, a small smile forming on her face. Word is several other species are requesting military cooperation. Agreements with Earth. Marcus raised an eyebrow slightly. Cooperation agreements. A few weeks ago most of them barely acknowledged our fleet existence. Times change quickly, sir, Sarah replied, especially after watching what happens when someone threatens a human child. Marcus allowed himself a small, tired smile. Let's hope it never has to happen again. Back on Earth, life slowly began returning to normal for the rescued children, though the road to healing remained long for many of them. Caleb, now living with a kind foster family arranged by Officer Rhea, had begun attending regular counseling sessions alongside the other rescued children. One afternoon, Mia and her parents visited him at his new home, the 2 children reuniting happily in the small backyard garden. You look happy, Mia observed, smiling as she watched Caleb tend carefully to a small vegetable garden he'd started. I am, Caleb replied, honestly, glancing toward his foster parents watching warmly from the porch. It's quiet here, peaceful, Mia nodded, understanding completely. Do you still think about what happened? Caleb considered the question seriously before answering. Sometimes, he admitted, but I try to remember what came after too. The soldiers, Captain Hale, Officer Reyna, all the people who helped us. Mia smiled softly. Me too. They sat together quietly for a while, simply enjoying the warm sunlight and gentle breeze. 2 children slowly learning to feel safe again after everything they'd endured. Elsewhere at Earth Command, General Alina Cross met privately with President Amara Whitfield to discuss the broader implications of recent events. Councils requesting a formal meeting to discuss expanded cooperation agreements. Elena reported, several species are interested in establishing stronger diplomatic and possibly military ties with Earth. Whitfield nodded, thoughtfully considering this development carefully, and the Voron Empire, formally apologetic, cooperating fully with ongoing investigations, Elena replied, though intelligence suggests deep internal divisions within their government regarding how this situation was handled. Whitfield walked slowly toward her office window, gazing out at the city below, bathed in the warm glow of a setting sun. We didn't seek this conflict, she said quietly, but perhaps some good can come from it. Stronger alliances, clearer boundaries about what this galaxy can and cannot do to innocent lives. Elena nodded in agreement. The other species are watching closely now, ma'am. How we proceed from here will shape how they view us for generations to come. Whitfield turned back toward her expression calm but resolute. Then let's make sure they understand clearly, she said. Humanity seeks peace, cooperation, and friendship with every species, willing to extend the same, but we will never again allow anyone to underestimate what we'll do to protect our own. Weeks turned into months, and slowly the galaxy adjusted to this new understanding of humanity. Trade agreements expanded, diplomatic relations strengthened. Species who had once viewed Earth with casual disregard now approached with careful respect, mindful of the quiet, patient strength that lay beneath humanity's calm exterior. At Council Central Station, Ambassador Veli's Corps reflected privately with his aide on the dramatic shift in galactic perception. A few months ago, few would have believed humanity capable of such decisive, controlled action. Veli's mused, watching various delegates interact respectfully with Earth's representatives across the chamber. What changed, sir? His aide asked. Curiously, Veli's considered the question thoughtfully before responding. I don't believe anything truly changed, he said slowly. I believe we simply misunderstood them from the beginning. Their patience was never weakness. Their calm was never fear. It was simply restraint, waiting quietly for the moment it was truly needed. His aide nodded slowly, understanding dawning clearly in his expression. And now? The aide asked. Veli's glanced once more toward the human delegation, watching quietly as Julian Reyes engaged calmly and respectfully with representatives from half a dozen different species. Now, Veli said softly, the entire galaxy understands clearly what happens when that restraint finally breaks. Back on Earth on a quiet evening months later, Caleb sat comfortably in his new home, surrounded by his foster family, sharing a warm family dinner. Occasionally, his thoughts drifted back to those dark days aboard Delta 7. Fear, the uncertainty, the quiet strength he had found within himself to help the younger children endure. But more often now, his thoughts turned toward brighter memories. Sergeant Ruiz gently removing his helmet to offer comfort, Captain Hale's calm reassurance, Officer Reyna's warm smile. As she promised him a new beginning, he glanced toward the small window of his bedroom that evening, staring quietly up at the night sky filled with countless distant stars. Somewhere out there, humanity continued its quiet vigilance, patient and calm, yet ready, always ready to act decisively whenever needed. Caleb smiled softly, finally feeling truly safe for the first time in a long while. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. That year, a lesson it would not soon forget. Humanity's patience was vast, its calm demeanor genuine, and its friendship worth cherishing, but threaten its children and humanity would become the last thing you ever wanted to